The dawn of the 1990s marked a new chapter in Madonna's career as a style icon. After dominating the 1980s with her Like a Virgin and Like a Prayer aesthetics, Madonna entered the new decade ready to reinvent herself yet again. The early 90s became a defining period where Madonna experimented with sexuality, high fashion, minimalism, and provocation through several distinct phases tied to her albums, tours, and film projects. Her fashion choices during this era shocked and entertained and permanently altered the landscape of pop culture, celebrity fashion, and the relationship between music and style. In April 1990, Madonna launched her Blonde Ambition World Tour, which became an immediate fashion landmark. French designer Jean Paul Gaultier created what would become the most iconic fashion piece of the decade, the cone bra corset. This structured undergarment with its pointed cups transformed the female silhouette into something architectural and powerful rather than merely sensual. Madonna wore her hair platinum blonde during this period, often styled in a high ponytail with dark roots deliberately showing. This contrasting look became a signature style that many fans imitated. Her makeup featured dramatic cat eyeliner, carefully drawn beauty marks, and bold red lipstick that recalled classic Hollywood glamour while giving it a modern edge. The Blonde Ambition Tour featured multiple costume changes with distinct thematic elements. Military-inspired outfits included men's pinstripe suits with exposed bras underneath, creating a gender-bending look that challenged fashion norms. Religious themes mixed with sexuality caused significant controversy, with Madonna performing religious songs while dressed in revealing outfits that referenced traditional Catholic imagery. The Vogue music video, released during this period, showcased the 1930s Hollywood glamour filtered through the lens of ballroom culture. Shot in black and white, the video highlighted fashion poses drawn from modeling and the underground ballroom scene. Madonna wore men's suits with exaggerated shoulder pads, vintage-inspired lingerie as outerwear, and accessorized with monocles, satin gloves that extended past her elbows, and dramatic jewelry. Her beauty during this era was defined by precisely shaped eyebrows, beauty marks drawn on with makeup, and a glamorous yet slightly austere approach to makeup that emphasized her eyes and lips, while keeping her skin looking natural. This look influenced club fashion and brought voguing dance moves and style from the underground LGBTQ+ community to mainstream attention. Madonna's backup dancers dressed in similar revealing costumes, creating a unified aesthetic on stage. She frequently wore fishnet stockings, combined pearls and diamonds as accessories, and used ponytails with scrunchies and bows that recalled both youthful innocence and pinup models. The tour's fashion successfully merged elements of burlesque, high fashion, religious iconography, and street style in a way that hadn't been seen before on a major pop tour. Each costume told a story and contributed to the theatrical nature of the performances, elevating tour fashion to new heights of artistic expression. In May 1991, the documentary Truth or Dare, outside the U.S. known as In Bed with Madonna, was released, providing fans with an intimate look at Madonna both on and off stage during the Blonde Ambition tour. The film showed a different side of Madonna's style. Her personal wardrobe when not performing. The documentary revealed Madonna frequently wearing black turtlenecks as part of her casual wardrobe, often accessorized with Chanel jewelry and accessories. Her offstage look featured minimal makeup with defined brows, and she often wore her hair in loose waves rather than the severe ponytails of her stage performances. In the film, Madonna demonstrated her fashion versatility by mixing high-end designer pieces with vintage finds from secondhand shops. She displayed her extensive collection of vintage jewelry in personal scenes, showing how these pieces inspired her stage costumes and music video looks. The documentary captured Madonna in simple white tank tops, paired with statement accessories, showing how she could make basic items look fashionable through careful styling, Her hotel room fashions included silk robes and lingerie that later influenced her more public fashion choices. What became clear through the documentary was that Madonna personally directed her own style choices rather than simply wearing what stylists selected. She wore leather jackets in several scenes, included menswear in her everyday wardrobe, and often wore sunglasses indoors as a style statement, a habit that many fans soon adopted. Her casual wear included jeans paired with designer tops. Even in these more relaxed moments, she wore statement earrings, showing her attention to detail. The release of the controversial Justify My Love video in late 1990, which MTV banned, signaled a shift toward a more explicit S&M influenced style that would define Madonna's early 90s aesthetic. In the video, Madonna wore leather caps, chains, and chokers that reference bondage culture. Her style embraced leather harnesses, studded collars, and other accessories drawn from BDSM subculture. Black leather dominated this fashion phase. And Madonna explored androgynous looks with slicked back hair that removed some of the traditionally feminine elements from her earlier personas. This harder edge represented a deliberate move away from the more playful sexuality of her 80s image towards something more confrontational and adult. In October 1992, Madonna released her controversial sex book, a metal-bound volume filled with explicit photographs taken by fashion photographer Steven Meisel. The book featured Madonna in various states of undress, often wearing BDSM-inspired fashion, including metal chains, leather harnesses, and latex bodysuits. She incorporated dominatrix fashion elements, including riding crops, knee-high boots, and metal jewelry with fetish theme. The book showcased Madonna mixing punk and fetish fashion influences, wearing military caps, leather gloves, and incorporating fishnet body stockings for revealing looks. Corsets with exaggerated proportions appeared throughout, as did black satin fabrics for lingerie-inspired outfits. She used veils and masks in some photos, adding mystery to the explicit imagery. Gianni Versace designed several outfits featured in the book, beginning a creative relationship that would define much of Madonna's high fashion moments in the years to come. The sex book represented Madonna's most controversial fashion period, using style to challenge sexual taboos and blur the line between pornography, art, and fashion photography. The book and its accompanying fashions mixed high-end designer pieces with underground club elements, creating looks that were simultaneously shocking and editorial. She featured garter belts prominently, used leather body harnesses as outerwear, and provocatively wore cross necklaces, combined with sexual imagery that outraged religious groups but influenced avant-garde fashion. Released in October 1992, alongside the sex book, Madonna's album Erotica continued the explicit themes with slightly more accessible fashion choices. She created the alter ego Mistress Dita, which was inspired by Marlene Dietrich for the album, wearing a black mask in the album art that concealed part of her face while revealing her mouth and eyes. During this period, Madonna wore gold teeth as a fashion accessory, something rarely seen in mainstream pop at the time. She continued with vintage lingerie mixed with modern elements and dark lipstick shades for performances. Her hair was short, bleached blonde with visible dark roots, and she temporarily featured eyebrow piercings that helped create a harder edge to her look. She wore bound corsets with visible boning that emphasized their construction, latex bodysuits for performances, and continued combining religious jewelry with fetish wear to create controversial juxtapositions. Oversized men's blazers worn as dresses became part of her wardrobe, as did biker caps that remained a signature accessory throughout this era. Her outfits featured chained belts with low-rise pants, buckled boots, and mesh tops as revealing layers. She wore crop tops paired with high-waisted pants, featured denim with strategic distressing, and mixed vintage pieces with contemporary designs. Her use of pinstripe fabrics and masculine cuts challenged gender norms in fashion, as did her wearing of suspenders with pants and shorts. Madonna's bodysuits during this period often featured cutout details, and she continued wearing underwear as outerwear on album covers and in promotional materials. She used nylon stockings with visible seams to reference vintage lingerie while making it modern, featured platform shoes with extreme heights, and wore chokers with lock and key details that referenced bondage culture. Metal rings appeared as connecting elements in her clothing, creating the impression that her outfits might fall apart if these connections were removed. This added a sense of dangerous precariousness to her fashion that matched the explicit themes of her music during this period. In September 1993, Madonna launched the Girlie Show World Tour, which featured cabaret and burlesque-inspired costumes that referenced early 20th century entertainment while maintaining Madonna's provocative edge. She wore military uniforms, styled as revealing outfits, used top hats as statement accessories, and featured showgirl headdresses for opening numbers that referenced Las Vegas entertainment. The tour saw Madonna wearing tailcoats with lingerie underneath, using whips as performance accessories, and performing in sequined bodysuits that caught the light during choreographed numbers. Some segments featured sailor-inspired outfits, riding boots paired with shorts, and boxer-style shorts and performance pieces that referenced athletic wear. Bolero jackets with minimal coverage underneath appeared in several numbers, as did fringe details on Western-inspired pieces. Controversially, Madonna wore Native American-inspired headdresses for certain segments, something that later received criticism for cultural appropriation, but reflected the less culturally sensitive fashion environment of the early 90s. The Girlie Show incorporated flapper-style dresses for some numbers, bow ties worn with bare-chested looks, and military-inspired caps paired with revealing uniforms. Madonna appeared as a ringmaster in some segments, wearing structured jackets with tails. Body paint served as a costume element in certain numbers, allowing Madonna to appear nearly nude while still being covered. World cultural influences appeared through belly dancer coin belts, harem-style pants, and head wraps with exotic styling. She wore knee pads as both functional elements for choreography and style statements, armbands with tribal designs, and silk robes for dramatic entrances. Italian designer Roberto Cavalli created several pieces for the tour, establishing another important designer relationship. The Girlie Show's fashion represented a slightly more theatrical and less explicitly sexual evolution of Madonna's style, though still provocative by mainstream standards. October 1994 saw the release of Madonna's Bedtime Stories album, which marked a significant shift to a softer, more romantic image after the controversy of the Erotica sex book period. Madonna grew her hair longer and styled it in softer waves, used pale blue eyeshadow as her signature look, and featured slip dresses in promotional appearances. This era saw Madonna wearing baby doll dresses for a more innocent look that contrasted with her previous fetish-inspired fashion. She used minimal jewelry compared to previous eras and wore pastel colors rather than the harsh black that had dominated her erotica period. Satin fabrics provided a luxurious look, while sheer materials layered over solid colors created depth without the explicit transparency of her earlier looks. Madonna wore Mary Jane-style shoes with ankle socks, creating a youthful, innocent appearance. She featured vintage-inspired lingerie in videos, but styled in a more romantic rather than explicit way. Pink became a dominant color for this era, replacing the blacks and reds of her previous look. Floral details appeared in some outfits. Her hair was often curled in retro waves, and she used pale lip colors instead of the bold reds and dark shades she had worn previously. Dropped cardigans over slip dresses, Peter Pan collars, and ribbon details as hair accessories all contributed to a girlish look that represented a complete style reinvention. She wore chunky platform heels with feminine dresses, used translucent fabrics with subtle shimmer, and adopted 1930s-inspired hairstyles that referenced old Hollywood. Long satin gloves for formal appearances, midi-length skirts with feminine cuts, and pastel nail polish colors all contributed to this softer aesthetic. Madonna accessorized with beaded pieces with vintage appeal, featured soft velvet fabrics, used delicate lace details, and wore headbands with floral embellishments. Pearl accessories appeared more prominently, completing the transformation from dominatrix to romantic ingenue in less than 2 years. In 1995, Madonna was ready to reference and reclaim her controversial sexual image with the release of Human Nature, a song that defiantly addressed critics of her sex book period. The video showed a return to a harder edge, with Madonna wearing black vinyl, featuring tight braided hairstyles, and using heavy black eyeliner. She wore leather catsuits for performances of the song, merging her explicit erotica era with a more refined high fashion approach. During this period, Madonna's relationship with Versace blossomed, and she became a major face for Versace's campaigns, appearing in advertisements photographed by Steven Meisel. Her hair returned to straight and blonde styling, and she wore outfits with minimal but strategic cutouts. Chainmail dresses designed by Versace became her choice for major events, and she continued wearing sheer black tights with visible seams as a signature legwear choice. Mixed metal accessories, backless dresses, and body-conscious silhouettes defined this period of high-fashion collaboration. She wore metallic fabrics for evening wear, chose slick-back hairstyles for formal events, and often appeared in monochromatic outfits in black that created a sleek, minimalist impression. Her footwear featured strappy sandals with minimal design, and she favored sleek column dresses that showed off her disciplined physique. Minimalist makeup with sculpted features and high-shine fabrics that reflected light became her red carpet signatures. Madonna carried structured handbags, wore architectural jewelry pieces, and chose oversized black sunglasses for daytime appearances. Diamond accessories appeared for formal events. Gold hardware details adorned her clothing, and she wore color-blocked outfits with geometric designs that reflected the minimalist mid-90s aesthetic. Her fashion during this period featured asymmetrical hemlines and patent leather for high-impact shine. The Versace collaboration represented Madonna's entry into the highest echelons of fashion, moving from controversial figure to fashion establishment while still maintaining her edge. Madonna's early 90s style was shaped by collaborations with major designers who created custom pieces for her tours, videos, and appearances. Jean Paul Gaultier's cone bra corsets became the most recognized design, but many other designers contributed to her evolving image. Dolce Gabbana designed multiple outfits for her tours and appearances, while her friendship with Gianni Versace resulted in custom pieces and eventually advertising campaigns. Karl Lagerfeld created custom Chanel pieces that Madonna wore in more formal settings, and Tunisian-born designer Azzedine Alaïa provided body-conscious dresses that showed off Madonna's physique. British designer John Galliano influenced her period-inspired looks, while Thierry Mugler contributed architectural pieces with dramatic silhouettes. Vivienne Westwood's punk sensibility informed some of Madonna's edgier fashion choices, and Christian Lacroix created ornate stage costumes that added theatrical flair. Roberto Cavalli designed pieces for the Girlie show that incorporated his signature animal prints and exotic influences. As the mid-90s approached, Tom Ford's work at Gucci created minimalist pieces that Madonna wore for more understated appearances. Marc Jacobs designed grunge-inspired items that Madonna incorporated into her more casual looks, while Stella McCartney provided sustainable fashion options before they were mainstream. Alexander McQueen's theatrical sensibility influenced some of Madonna's more avant-garde choices. Lovier Rostand crafted statement pieces with strong shoulders and bold details. Helmut Lang's minimalism influenced Madonna's more understated phase. American designer Michael Kors created sportswear pieces that Madonna wore for casual appearances. Louis Vuitton produced custom luggage for Madonna's tours. Calvin Klein's understated aesthetic influenced her minimalist period. And Betsy Johnson created playful performance pieces for some of her more colorful stage moments. These designer relationships demonstrated Madonna's unique position, bridging the worlds of music, fashion, and art. Unlike previous pop stars who simply wore what was provided, Madonna actively collaborated with designers, influencing their work as they influenced hers. Madonna's early 90s looks quickly filtered down to street fashion, with cone bras appearing in modified forms, in retail stores and underwear as outerwear becoming a mainstream trend. Visible bra straps, once considered a fashion faux pas, became acceptable fashion statements directly because of Madonna's influence. Leather caps appeared in youth fashion, fishnets became popular as layering pieces, and intentionally showing dark roots with blonde hair became a deliberate style choice rather than a sign of poor maintenance. Religious jewelry, particularly crosses, moved from devotional items to fashion accessories. Women wearing men's suits gained popularity, and corsets experienced a revival in mainstream fashion after decades of being considered antiquated undergarments. Military-inspired fashion entered women's clothing lines, leather harnesses appeared in club wear, and chokers became one of the defining accessories of the 90s. Bodycon dresses dominated nightclub scenes, sheer materials layered over solid colors became common in evening wear, and platform shoes returned to fashion prominence after the flat styles of the 80s. Slip dresses moved from bedroom to streetwear, appearing in retail collections at all price points. Mixed metals became standard in mainstream jewelry rather than the previous convention of wearing all gold or all silver. Dark lipstick gained popularity for everyday wear, baby doll dresses appeared in retail collections, and latex and vinyl materials entered club fashion for those seeking to emulate Madonna's more daring looks. Vintage lingerie shops saw increased interest as women sought authentic pieces similar to what Madonna wore. Crop tops paired with high-waisted pants became a standard silhouette. Pearl accessories returned youthful fashion after being considered matronly, and scrunchies and hair accessories saw renewed interest. Monochrome outfits dominated fashion magazines, asymmetrical hemlines appeared in department stores, and patent leather accessories gained mainstream appeal beyond fetish contexts. Madonna's fashion choices received unprecedented media coverage during the early 90s. MTV heavily featured her style evolution. Fashion magazines debated her controversial choices, and feminist critics offered mixed reactions to her sexually explicit presentations, with some saying empowerment and others exploitation. Religious groups protested her sexualized religious imagery, particularly during the Blonde Ambition tour and sex book period. The sex book itself caused international controversy, with some countries banning its sale entirely. Mainstream news covered Madonna's fashion as much as her music, treating her style choices as significant cultural events. Parents groups expressed concern about her influence on young fans, while some designers refused to work with her due to her controversial image. Japan banned some of her more explicit videos from broadcasts, and fashion critics simultaneously praised her willingness to take risks while questioning the execution of certain looks. Some countries refused entry to her tours based on costume choices and performance content. Despite this controversy, or perhaps because of it, magazines featured Madonna on covers throughout the period, and the fashion industry acknowledged her commercial impact on trends and sales. Academic studies began examining her effect on gender expression and sexuality in popular culture. Documentary films analyzed her style evolution as a significant cultural phenomenon rather than mere celebrity fashion. Her tours broke attendance records despite controversy, proving that her provocative image translated to commercial success. Madonna received both criticism and praise for cultural appropriation in her fashion choices, particularly her use of religious symbols and ethnic inspirations. Television talk shows regularly debated her influence on youth culture, while conservative groups organized boycotts of her music and performances. Fashion journalists credited her with reviving vintage styles and making them contemporary. Industry insiders recognized her marketing genius in using fashion to extend her brand beyond music. Critics noted her ability to predict fashion trends rather than simply following them. Her style was discussed in serious art publications, elevating pop star fashion to a legitimate form of artistic expression. She received fashion icon status from multiple organizations. Her tours were reviewed as much for costumes as music, and business analysts studied her brand management as a case study in celebrity marketing. Cultural critics noted her role in breaking taboos through fashion. Museum exhibitions began featuring her costume pieces as significant cultural artifacts, and university courses analyzed her impact on popular culture. The press documented each of her style transformations as noteworthy cultural events. treating Madonna as a barometer of changing social attitudes. Madonna's early 90s fashion existed within a specific cultural context that both influenced and was influenced by her choices. The period marked the end of the excess of the 80s, with grunge becoming the dominant youth culture aesthetic, a trend Madonna acknowledged but never fully embraced. The ongoing AIDS crisis, expressions of sexuality in fashion, creating both caution and defiance in how bodies were displayed. Third wave feminism examined Madonna's choices with mixed views, debating whether her explicit sexuality represented empowerment or played into male fantasies. The fall of the Berlin Wall and end of the Cold War influenced military fashion trends that Madonna incorporated into her tours. An economic recession affected luxury fashion consumption, though Madonna's high-ex and designer relationships continue regardless of economic climate. Debates about political correctness began impacting discussions of cultural appropriation in fashion, though with less intensity than in later decades. The rise of hip-hop culture influenced street style that Madonna selectively incorporated into her looks. The supermodel era peaked during this period, with figures like Naomi Campbell, Linda Evangelista, and Chrissy Turlington appearing in George Michael's Freedom 90 video, which competed with Madonna's fashion-forward videos for cultural influence. Minimalism began replacing 80s excess in high fashion, a trend Madonna embraced by the mid-90s. Club culture heavily influenced mainstream fashion, with Madonna drawing inspiration from underground scenes and bringing them to mass attention. LGBTQ plus visibility increased in fashion circles, partly due to Madonna's incorporation of ballroom culture in Vogue and her support of gay communities. Japanese designers gained Western influence, affecting silhouettes and fabrications available to Western designers. Technology began changing fashion production, allowing for new materials and techniques. Globalization expanded fashion reference points, enabling Madonna to draw from a wider range of cultural influences. The Gulf War influenced military fashion elements that appeared in Madonna's tours and videos. Environmental awareness began affecting fashion choices, though sustainable fashion remained a niche concern. Vintage shopping became more mainstream, partly due to Madonna's incorporation of vintage pieces in her wardrobe. DIY fashion gained credibility beyond punk subcultures. Cross-cultural fashion borrowing increased despite growing concerns about appropriation, and gender fluidity in fashion became more visible in mainstream contexts. Designer collaborations with musicians increased, with Madonna leading this trend through her work with major fashion houses. MTV's influence on fashion reached its peak during this period. Console video games began influencing youth fashion through character design, and the early internet was beginning to change how fashion was communicated and consumed. Postmodernism influenced fashion's referential nature, with Madonna's style mixing historical references, contemporary influences, and future predictions. Sports influences entered high fashion, rave culture affected clubwear styles, body modification became more mainstream, and reality television began its influence on celebrity fashion. Madonna's approach to fashion as an integral part of artistic expression created a template that future pop stars would follow. Lady Gaga explicitly referenced Madonna's boundary-pushing approach to fashion and performance, while Britney Spears adopted corset and lingerie elements for her own performances. Christina Aguilera used comb brought inspirations in her Lady Marmalade era. Rihanna referenced Madonna's mix of sexuality and high fashion in her public appearances, and Katy Perry incorporated colorful corsetry inspired by Madonna's tours into her concert costumes. Miley Cyrus's provocative performances referenced Madonna's ability to generate controversy through fashion and staging. Beyoncé cited Madonna as a performance influence, particularly in her incorporation of high fashion into touring wardrobes. Nicki Minaj used similar provocative religious imagery in performances and videos. Taylor Swift's Reputation era borrowed from Madonna's edgier elements as part of her own image reinvention. Pink adopted Madonna's athletic performance style, incorporating acrobatics with fashion-forward costumes. Ariana Grande referenced Madonna's ponytail hairstyles while developing her own signature look. Dua Lipa incorporated Madonna's club influences into her retro futuristic aesthetic. Billie Eilish positioned herself as a counterpoint to Madonna's revealing style by choosing oversized concealing clothing, a different approach but equally calculated in its image management. Selena Gomez referenced Madonna's evolving image strategy in her transitions between eras. Halsey used similar gender-bending fashion elements in performances. Doja Cat incorporated Madonna's theatrical costumes into her visual presentations. Cardi B referenced Madonna's provocative fashion statements while developing her own outrageous style. Lana Del Rey used Madonna's vintage Hollywood references filtered through a contemporary lens. Charli XCX incorporated Madonna's club kit aesthetic into her futuristic pop presentations. Madonna's daughter, Lourdes Leon, referenced her mother's style in her own modeling career. BTS cited Madonna's fashion as performance inspiration for their carefully choreographed presentation. Lizzo used similar body-positive statement fashion in her celebration of diverse body types. Normani referenced Madonna's dance-inspired costumes in solo performances. Rosalia incorporated similar religious imagery within her flamenco pop fusion. Olivia Rodrigo referenced 90s Madonna and vintage-inspired styling that appealed to Gen Z audiences. Lil Nas X used similar religious controversy tactics in his Montero video. Troye Sivan referenced Madonna's gender fluidity in his stage presentations. Sabrina and Carpenter used Madonna's blonde bombshell references in her visual aesthetic. Irina Sawayama incorporated Madonna's cultural mixing into her pan-cultural pop presentations. Harry Styles referenced Madonna's gender-bending approach in his fluid fashion choices that mixed traditionally masculine and feminine elements. Some of Madonna's fashion innovations created permanent changes in how fashion functions in popular culture. Underwear as outerwear became permanently acceptable in appropriate contexts, no longer shocking but simply one styling option among many. Gender-fluid fashion entered the mainstream, with traditional distinctions between menswear and womenswear becoming increasingly blurred. Fashion and sexuality became openly connected in marketing and design, moving beyond suggestion to explicit reference. Music performers became expected to have fashion relevance, with style transformations becoming a standard part of artistic evolution. Fashion became recognized as a tool for identity expression beyond mere clothing choice. Acknowledged as a form of personal branding and communication, religious imagery mixed with fashion became common. Despite continued controversy, vintage fashion gained lasting credibility beyond costume or novelty. Corsets permanently moved from underwear to fashion statements worn as tops rather than foundation garments. Controversial fashion became a recognized marketing strategy, with planned outrage driving media coverage and sales. Fashion tours became as important as music and concert presentations, with costume changes and styling receiving critical attention alongside the music. Music videos established themselves as fashion showcases where new trends could be launched. Designers actively courted music star collaborations, recognizing the commercial potential of such partnership. Fashion photography incorporated more sexual themes in mainstream publications rather than only in avant-garde contexts. Body confidence through revealing clothing became normalized rather than scandalous. Style transformation became expected for artists rather than maintaining a consistent image throughout a career. Fashion tied to album eras became standard practice in the music industry, with visual rebranding accompanying music releases. Documentary films featuring fashion became a common format for examining cultural influence. Luxury fashion brands routinely sought music star ambassadors for advertising campaigns. Shock value in fashion gained commercial viability beyond subcultural context. Personal style became recognized as an essential part of star branding rather than merely what someone wears. Stage costume design gained new prominence and recognition as a specialized field. Fashion books by performers became an established publishing category with commercial viability. Visible lingerie straps became acceptable rather than a fashion mistake to be hidden. Cone-shaped details entered the permanent design vocabulary of fashion. Cross-genre fashion mixing became standard practice rather than unusual experimentation. Fashion's ability to push boundaries of public acceptance became an acknowledged part of its cultural function. Fetish elements permanently entered mainstream accessories collections in modified forms. Pop stars became expected to influence fashion trends beyond simply wearing current styles. Music merchandise incorporated high fashion elements, elevating band t-shirts and memorabilia to designer status. Performance art concepts merged with fashion design, creating runway shows that functioned as artistic statements beyond merely displaying clothing.